Observe a high-density urban intersection. Hundreds of multi-ton steel machines and pedestrians weave past each other every minute. Statistically, this should be an immediate disaster. This flawless interaction does not happen because humans are naturally cooperative or possess some innate herd instinct. Society operates on a highly engineered, invisible operating system. We call it the law. At its core, law is a strict set of rules created and enforced by a social or governmental institution to regulate human behavior. This diagram illustrates how constraints organize a system. By dropping rigid lines onto a field, chaotic dots are forced into structured formations. The law does this for society, outputting three precise results: safety, predictability, and dispute resolution. If you remove a core parameter, like the rule against using your hands in soccer, the system breaks down. It collapses into a brawl. Understanding this operating system is a prerequisite for anyone navigating modern society. Today, we will map out the core axioms, the typological architecture, and the mechanical execution cycle of this system. The elemental physics of law rely on a strict binary constraint: correlative rights and duties. One cannot exist without the other. This diagram models that boundary condition. Entity A's right to walk safely on a sidewalk strictly dictates Entity B's duty to keep their vehicle on the road. The right forms the boundary, the duty maintains it. Where do these structural boundary rules actually originate? Historically, they flow from two foundational sources. Custom provides bottom-up rules derived from centuries of local practice, like shared water rights. Religious or natural law provides universal moral frameworks. The third source is judicial decisions, or precedents. When a judge resolves a unique dispute, that ruling creates a map for all future similar cases. Is an iterative, path-finding approach. The fourth source is legislation. These are explicit, top-down rules constructed by elected institutional bodies. Customs, universal morals, and case-by-case precedents are historically organic. A modern, high-density society, however, requires an immediate, engineered method to codify new parameters. That engineered method is logistic, or statutory law. A statute is simply a written law. Statutory law is deliberate. A broad assembly of lawmakers convenes to debate, vote, and explicitly record these rules into a formal code. This replaces the slow drift of customary tradition. A legislative vote pushes an immediate parameter update to the societal system. When a government updates the vehicle code to establish a highway speed limit at 65 miles per hour, a completely new boundary is instantly instantiated into reality. The power of codification lies in its accessibility. Citizens do not have to guess what the rules are based on obscure traditions. They can open a physical book and read them. Statutory law functions as the primary operational code of modern governance. Its written permanence creates a definitive, searchable database of legal parameters. This diagram maps the expansive volume of statutes. To function efficiently, the system sorts these rules into four specific operational jurisdictions. Constitutional law operates as the meta-framework. It is the underlying code that limits the power of the governing body itself. The physical text of a constitution acts as the ultimate operational manual, defining exactly what the state can and cannot execute. Administrative law handles bureaucratic protocol. It provides the internal operational rules for state agencies, like the Environmental Protection Agency or the Department of Motor Vehicles. Criminal law pits the state against an individual. Its explicit goal is public safety, and cases are measured on a strict binary outcome metric: guilty or not guilty. Civil law manages disputes between private individuals. It aims to resolve breached contracts or personal damages, utilizing liability and compensation as its outcome metrics. By compartmentalizing statutes into these four branches, the architecture ensures every conceivable conflict is routed to a highly specific, optimized processing system. How does an abstract social preference actually traverse this system and become a binding, enforceable statute? This continuous, tripartite loop links the legislature, executive, and judiciary. First, the legislature identifies a societal problem and drafts a bill. Once passed, the executive branch regulates and implements that text. Finally, the judiciary resolves conflicts, acting as referees to define exact boundary conditions. In reality, the creation phase requires complex institutional coordination, where elected representatives debate and actively sign physical texts into law. The enforcement phase cascades down to thousands of technicians and administrators working daily at their desks to execute those legal protocols. This intentional fragmentation of the life cycle ensures systemic stability. No single entity is permitted to write, enforce, and judge the code simultaneously. This entire legal architecture exists within one ultimate bounding constraint: the rule of law. The core tenet is universal application. The president, the billionaire, and the police are all subordinate to the system, not external to it. Within this framework, justice is not an abstract emotional feeling. Justice is the fair, perfectly calibrated application of this exact systemic architecture. The law functions as a high-resolution map, providing the coordinates required to navigate a complex society. The system operates with a strict logic. Ignorance of the code is never a valid excuse for breaking it. Because ignorance is penalized, deep knowledge of this operating system becomes an individual's greatest strategic advantage. Select a specific statute in your own jurisdiction and evaluate its systemic efficacy in the comments below. In our next module, we will deconstruct the mechanics of reading case law and precedents.